Okay, here we go. And this is the Mac. Yes. Okay, so I go to Finder, and we are inside Documents, and not that, I don't think. I don't know. Developer, in-class demos. That's what I want. In-class demos, and this 16th was the last one we did. Here's how I do my versioning. Duplicate it. I don't know why that popped up. It shouldn't have. I thought I duplicated it. Duplicate. There it is. Now, instead of leaving it that name, I'm going to rename it. Hey, ta-da. Now, you may well wonder, and rightfully so, why don't you use some versioning system like Git or whatever? Well, I tried that, and it doesn't work for the way I'm running the class, which is I need the complete version history. I need all of the earlier versions intact without having to restore to a previous state. And this way, I've got all of them, because the way I always start with the next version that I'm working on is just to copy the whole project. And now I'm going to modify version 3. There's the Xcode project. After I open it, modify that into what I want it to do next. Before I can do that, I have to be able to see it. Shift Command ++. Yes. I am on a memory roll this morning. I might not feel well, but my brain is working overtime. Well, close to it. Model. Here's what I want to do for today. I've already told you I'm not going to get done. I just don't feel the energy in me. And I hope I don't put you to sleep because of my boring monotone, because I'm tired. But symbolic constant should be over here somewhere. And all of this is everything we've done that's the royal we. Everything I've done so far has to do with the keyboard. Mental note, a lot of this stuff needs a lot more symbolic constants, and that'll be one of the things I'll do I'm not going to drag you through that in class, picking out all the numbers and changing them to symbolic constants, but I will record a video of it. So if you want to see where I made the changes, you can do that. And I'll also be sprinkling comments in there. But I call that a cosmetic fix-up. I mean, make it more neat, more readable, more professional, but it's not really driving the project forward with algorithms or new views or anything, so I'm not going to make you watch that in class. You're welcome. I'll start by commenting. This will be the number of letters in the secret word and in each user guess. That might even be more comment that I need, but it's better to have too much than not enough when it comes to comments. Letter, guess, count, and that's not even right. Letter guess count equals 5. 5 letters per guess. If you think of a better variable name or symbolic constant name, please share it in real time, because I myself am getting bogged down with all of the different similar variable names and structure names and class names and everything. And while I'm already still here in the symbolic constants, the number of guesses of the secret word that the user gets. These comments are more verbose when I don't have the energy to come up with something better. Max guess, except they're not going to get 10. And we don't have to say int. Swift will infer the data type. I could leave int there. Oh, I will. No, that'll be confusing, wouldn't it? Because I didn't put int on this one, and it's the same thing. How many guesses do you get in unnamed word game? 6. That was fairly painless, but we still don't have anything to represent a guess inside, and I'm going to have to switch over to the model for that. Bottom up, I'm going to do the tiniest little structure first, and then work our way up from that. And the tiniest one is a single guess of the secret word. Gesundheit. And I could not think of any better name for that than struct Struct, guess with a capital G. And let's not forget our deeply held conventions that variables start with lowercase letters and they're camel cased. New data types, including structures and classes, are also camel cased, but they start with a capital letter. And, you know, that's arbitrary rules. It's not required by the language. But we are, as I've been moaning about already, and the period just started, we are close to drowning in all the different symbols and things that we have to keep up with. And it's just going to be an easier, more direct visual cue to be able to glance at a symbol in your code and know whether that's a variable or a data type or a symbolic constant. And one way to facilitate that, fancy word for it, make that easier, is to stick to the naming conventions. So that's why guess starts with a capital letter. And my own convention, whether or not it's actually necessary, is I've started making everything identifiable, because you might need to for each through it, you might need to do a regular for loop through it or whatever, and it's kind of might be an overkill thing to do, but all you got to do to make it identifiable is to give it an ID number. And it has to be named ID. Identifiable, you may or may not recall, is a protocol, and a protocol, you may or may not recall, is what? I'll sip caffeine while you ponder the philosophical implications of what a protocol is.
It's something you have to do to make it work properly.
It's something you have to do to make it work properly. It's almost like we're specifying a structure or a class, except it's an empty structure or a class with respect to what we have to do. It's got pieces missing, and we have to supply the missing pieces, or we don't get to be one of those things. If we want to be identifiable so that it's easy to for loop through us or easy to for each through us, then we have to first of all be, the word that's used is conform. We have to conform to the identifiable protocol, and the identifiable protocol is easy. All you got to do is have an integer variable named ID. And I better say that this, since I'm not supplying a value, I do need to supply the data type on this, int. Now, who has a question on that part? I have a new structure that's going to represent a single guess of a secret word, and all it's got in it right now is an ID number, and that's not enough. What else do I need in a structure that is going to represent a user's guess of the secret word? What does a guess look like of a secret word? It looks like a string, but it's going to be more painful than screaming death for us to implement a guess as a string, because we have to be able to pick apart the individual pieces and put them in squares. Yes?
Is it an array of the individual letters?
Yes, I would recommend that rather than go with string, which you could say behind the scenes, well, that's just an array of the individual letters, except we need the granularity of control that we can use index numbers or whatever it takes to get at those individual letters. It's almost as if we're more interested in the individual letters than we are in the entire string. So yeah, we want our own homemade array of letters in a user's guess. What could be simpler? ... represented as. Now another thing, a constraint of the Swift language altogether is you can't have variables that do not have values. A kind of an almost feels like cheating exception to that are the optionals, where if you don't have values, that's fine, but they still have a value nil that represents, I meant to do that. It represents, I don't have a value and I know it. What about these letters and all these user guesses? If we can visualize, we got, like the unnamed word game of the Unnamed Magazine website, they've got like a two-dimensional array almost. That's going to be beyond the scope of what I want to venture into. But we'll think of that as maybe a VStack of these arrays, okay? What are the initial values of all those letters that go in there? They're empty. So here is a case where I think optionals are called for. So let me see what the comment even says. I need to debug my comments first. Array of letters in a user's guess represented as optionals. So here comes a variable. Guess item. Is that right? A guess. Guess. Letters? Maybe I'll take it. Guess letters is not a string. I'm going to make it not even an array of string because we don't really have an awful lot of information if all we store in there is the letter. We're probably going to want to know the index number. Here's where I'm looking ahead, and you're not supposed to do that with bottom-up programming, but we're going to need to know more about it. Just as with the keyboard key, we're going to need to know more than just the letter. We're going to need to know this color and whether it's on the active row and all that sort of stuff. So somewhere we're going to have a structure that maybe we should have. Oh, I've already got that. Letter option, identifiable. The letter itself is a string and whether or not it's selected. So this, what have we got? I'll need an array of index numbers, optional index numbers. Please cooperate. And you have to make an array. Array is not a fundamental data type in Swift. So you have to make it, and it showed me there, and I want that back. Please bring it back. No. If you want to fill it up with initial values, and they're all going to be the same value, you can fill it up by using repeating. What value do I want to repeat over and over? Look, it did finish this correctly, except I'm going to use the symbolic constant there. Letter guess count. Is that what we called it? This is saying make an array of guess letters. It feels kind of funny, but if I have to change it, I'll change it. A guess will be an array of letter guess count is 5, of 5 nils in the array, which are optional integers. They don't have values yet. And the integer will be the index number back into the array of letter structures back in the model. We're in the model, yes. This doesn't know anything about the screen. I'm getting myself confused. Not hard to do. Yes?
Where do we have our array of the letter options? Because you said we're using this guess letters as a holder for the index.
Okay, there goes our clouded namespace again. The letter option was the name I come up with, perhaps erroneously. That's a keyboard key. That's different from the letters that fill in the squares up top of part of a guess. So a letter option means I'm offering you this letter on the keyboard if you want to peck that and put that into the word. So our letter options got, where they got initially, actually we built the whole thing right here, right? With the init, because here's our array of letter options. This is, you know what, I need to start commenting these things better. Letter options, this is, in effect, our virtual keyboard of letters to choose. Is that even approaching or addressing your question? Where is the array of letter options?
Yes, I think so, because we don't right now have the array to match the structure we just built, right?
Right.
Okay.
I'm doing bottom up
Okay.
and explaining it poorly, but this, I actually don't at this point. I'm going to regret this probably and have to fix it later. But at this point, I don't have a structure to represent the individual letters in a guess. I'm just representing the individual letters in a guess with their index number into some array somewhere else. Probably, at this point, it's going to be the index into our array of virtual keypad keys, keyboard keys.
So when you do the array, it returns an index number? Like, because you have it as an int optional equals an array. How can an int equal an array?
Are you looking at this right here, this line?
Yes.
What this is, I'm setting up a new variable called guess letters that are going to be the letters of my guess. And the colon says, here comes the data type. What data type is it? Well, in Swift, the way you shorthand defines something to be an array is to put it in square brackets. So this says that GIS letters is an array of optional integer values.
That makes sense.
Now then, I don't have to have this part here right now. I can do that with an init function for the structure. But I already know what I want it to be, so rather than have to do the init function, at least for right now, I can go ahead and just say, well, here's your array right here. It's an array repeating nil values, which only makes sense for an integer value, and I want this many of them. I want letter guess count of them, which is whatever the heck it is. 5?
I think we made 6.
Huh?
I think we made the letter guess count 6.
I did. Letter guess count, okay. Letter guess count is the number of letters. Yeah, I'm getting these confused as well. The letter guess count is the number of letters in the secret word and also in each user guess. Actually, the number itself doesn't matter that much. I could make that 2. We'll guess 2-letter words. That's the whole point of having the symbolic constants here. This is to make it so it's very easily adjustable in the future. And 5 might be, you know what, while I'm testing it, 5 is too many. No, I'll leave it so that I can get at least the appearance right on the screen before I start tweaking it. But this, if you help me remember, this says that each word that the user tries to guess will have 5 letters in it, and they get 6 guesses, so they should have 6 rows of 5 letters each. Or so I think. And I use my back arrow here because I forgot what file I was in. So are we okay with guess? Everybody's okay with guess? This, you know what? I'm going to put arrows, not arrows, but blank lines here for now. Even though this is in the model and this has the virtual keyboard and everything, this should probably go over in my keyboard file. This is eventually going to have to go into a separate file. I might as well go ahead and do it, right? Let's make a new file. I can't read that. File from template. And iOS file. Next. And this one, is that going into the right folder? I think so. Is it? Is that a 2?
It's 3.
Is that the folder I just made? 3? Okay. Somebody else needs to come up here and do this demo. Help out your poor instructor. He doesn't know what he's doing. Guess. Guess what he's doing. Okay. Create it. There it is. And go back to where I was. And you are out of here. Cut, guess, paste, Control V, no, Command V. Okay, so guess is going to get a lot more to it. I don't know what that end if was all about. Let me just run this again. I know it's not going to do anything different. Just see if I broke it. Can't tell. We need to review what it was doing anyway. Holy moly. Okay. Yeah, there's so much cleanup that needs to be done. These colors need to change. And I went back and looked at Wordle, and it doesn't have any outline on the keyboard keys at all. They're a gray background, but they do eventually change color, and we do want to be able to highlight one. So that's working. That part is working so far. And now we're working on the guesses, and the guesses will go up here. So we've got plenty of space for them. We're just not doing it yet. Okay, so now I've got the beginnings of a guess, and in the model, what else do I need? I need an array in the model of all possible user guesses, and I'll try to remember to document as I go. Array of all user guesses. And that'll have to be a var, of course. Var user guesses. No, you are not a string. You are an array of guesses. Not like that. Isn't it singular? Array of guess.
Should be.
So that variable is going to have to be initialized. And I also want, I'm going to need to know soon what row I'm on. So I'll call it current row. And that's an integer. And it says equals 0. Should this be an optional or should it be 0?
It's 0 because you're on a row to start.
You're right. You are exactly right. You thought it better than I did. The current row does have an initial value. We start off on row 0 in all cases. So row of current guess. I don't even know what to say about that. Which means,
Why would you do it this way opposed to a 2D array? Like, how is a 2D array harder?
well, a 2D array, you'd have to view it not only as a 2D array of things that are displayed on the screen, you also have to be able to easily access the individual guesses to compare those to the secret word. And it just feels like to me that if we have a single structure that represents a guess, a one-dimensional user guess of all those letters, it's going to be easier to set up a function or whatever we need to compare that to the secret word than it would be to have to start picking out sections of a two-dimensional array. It's as if the two-dimensional array tries to hold too much stuff in it when we're going to be using only one row at a time. We only ever use one row at a time. The rows that they've already guessed, we're not interested in those anymore as long as they display correctly. And the rows that are ahead of us, those are all optional, so those don't do us any good. At any given time, we are only interested in one row of that two-dimensional array. Is that?
Yeah.
I'm trying to convince myself as much as I am you. Are we convinced?
Yeah, that makes sense.
At least for now. If it turns out that it's more elegant, more efficient, and works out better, a two-dimensional array, all of this stuff is still, the ink will never dry on this. We can go back to anything we need to. Yes?
Just to like be clear, user guesses is an array of like each, I guess, row is like a word that they guess.
Yes.
And then equals, like,
Maybe
array.
today should, well, you know, I was about to say maybe today should have been the picture drawing day, except I did want us to go ahead and get guesses because now we'll have something closer to a complete outline of just about everything that's got to be on the screen. After we've got even just a fragment of the keyboard and just empty guesses up there, we will still have the data structures that we will spend the rest of the game filling in and changing. So, yeah, I'm sorry. I know that's confusing. A guess with a capital G is a single row of letters that represents, and again, I'm talking to myself as much as I'm to you. It's a single row of letters that represents what the user is guessing the secret word to be. And we need an array of those, which I can't think of a better variable name than this. The user guesses array is the array of all 6 of those. And if we decide, oh, we feel sorry for them, we'll do the training step game. They get 10 guesses. Now we can change it in the symbolic constants, and bada boom, the whole game will adjust itself to be 10 guesses rather than 6. Expert mode, you have to be able to get it in 3. All those kinds of adjustments will ideally be things that all we have to do is modify the symbolic constants file and the whole game changes. Did you have a question, Mr. Brown? No, stretching? Not even that? This, init, number of letter options. You know what? This has gone as long as it can. Set up a virtual keyboard. Isn't that what we're doing here? Or initialize. Set up sounds like we're making the whole thing. Initialize a virtual keyboard. Letter option. An option, I realize, I don't know what to put there. It's a letter that the user can choose if they want to. We're offering it to them. Here's one of your options. But again, that clouds the space with optionals themselves. That does not mean that these letters are optional. Let's quickly review this little chunky code. Remember that an init function has to initialize all the variables that are not initialized up top, up here. So we have to make all these letter options and stuff them in to the letter option array. There might be a way to do the repeating and all the other stuff, but that would get hideously complicated. And this way, it's a good exercise. It's for our own sake. And we make the letter options on the fly with a self-referential ID number, the letter index. Notice the letter index is looping 0, 1, 2, 3. That's what we're using. And I think I do that in the other places where I use identifiable as well, which is kind of lame. It's like every time you make an array, one of the fields inside the structure, inside the array, is the index number itself. But I've tried other things, and except for the /.self, I can't find a way around it. And /.self everywhere was getting more confusing than using index numbers. That's my excuse. I'm sticking with it. Okay, so now we've got the keyboard initialized. Okay, this is complaining at me that I didn't initialize everything, because now I need to initialize. Come on, cursor, what are you doing? You're messing with me. Initialize the set of user guesses. I think that's what we're doing. Now, this is a subtle point, but I'll make the subtle point again. I think I did with letter options, and we'll do it again here. Look, the AI is helping me. User guesses equals array guess, and you'll notice the difference between this one and this one is we use the equal sign, and it's got parentheses. That's like a constructor back in object-oriented C++ class land, which is looking more comfortable old shoe all the time. But here, this just defines the data type of user guesses. This actually dynamically allocates an array of guesses in the heap for us to use as our user guesses array. Now we've got to put stuff in there. For I, we do it about the same way.
So the top one where it's the semicolon would be like the when we're like defining the structure, but you're not actually calling it, and then the second one is like when you actually like start to use the structure.
This,
C++.
okay, I'm going to get vulgarly C++ here. This is like we're defining user guesses to be a pointer to something, but it doesn't point at anything yet. Down here, this is where we're dynamically allocating the array that user guesses can point at.
Could you?
And behind the scenes, that's actually what happens. These are pointer values. This is a pointer variable.
So did you need the first line, or could you have just done that one?
I could not have just done it at this one because this is inside a function, and therefore it's a local variable inside the function, and therefore it will disappear when the function returns. And I will have gone to all this trouble and not had a user guesses array. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that much, it doesn't look like it. It's a good old-fashioned garden variety function that has its own local variables. And if I'm not careful, I might set up something like letter index here. That's a local variable. Letter index is going to be long gone after this function returns. I don't want that to happen to letter options, so I stake a claim for that up here. I don't want that to happen to user guesses, so I set up a variable for user guesses up here. So those variables already exist, and I get a complaint if my initializer / constructor doesn't set initial values for all these things. So that's what I'm in the process of doing, and I'm talking in a circle. I might as well be making a speech at Davos.
You misspelled 4.
That's country spelling. I should turn on Arkansan for Xcode so that it understands what I'm typing. For I in 0 ... less than, I'm still not used to these. Is it max guesses? Is that what I want? Is that how many? Yes, that's how many user guesses I want is max guesses. I'm even second guessing the user guesses, make 1, append, yes. And, holy moly. What am I appending? Oh, guess. It's an array of guesses, so I need to make a guess. Make a guess. And all I've got in a guess right now that has to be initialized, where are you? I'm clicking on you. ID, because this is optional. Mercifully, you don't have to initialize arrays of optionals or individual variables of optionals, but you do have to initialize anything that's not an optional, so I do have to initialize the ID. And ID, this is, I don't know if you've gotten used to this. Let me finish it first. I can't think and talk at the same time. I can't think and think at the same time. This ID colon, that's how you pass a parameter to a function. So I'm passing a parameter, in effect, to the constructor for a guess structure. And when I, in effect, call air quotes, because it's not technically a function for a structure, it's got an automatic initializer if you don't provide one. It's got an automatic initializer that expects you to provide a value for all the variables inside the structure. The only one that we have to provide a value for that's not optional is the ID. And this is this circular reasoning here. I'm looping using index variable I to go through 6 times. Is that right? Yes, 6 times. And the index number 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Each one of those is becoming the ID number of the guess that I'm appending to the end of my array. I got to draw a picture of this stuff for myself. I have started, and that's what made me decide, you know what? If I do all this complicated mess in advance and just hand it to him as a printed out copy, then nobody's going to get anything out of it. So I'm going to bring all my crayons and all my color pencils and all the different colorful tools I have at my disposal Friday. And we will draw pictures that illustrate all these data structures, yes.
So this just gives each word that user guesses an ID number?
Yes, all it's doing is giving them an ID number for future use if we decide to do a for each on them, which I think we probably will do, or a for loop, not guesser. There. Yes, I'm just assigning an ID number, and for review again, over here in this other file, maybe I split it off too soon, but all we have right now in a guess is an ID number, which now we know is just going to be its own index into the array of guesses, array of all possible guesses. And in addition, it's got its own array inside of integers. I'm going to quit calling them optional integers. They are going to be numbers. And those numbers are the index numbers of the keyboard key. It's like a spider web, all these things all tangled up with each other.
So it's sort of, in a twisted way, is a 2D array because you have an array of guesses, but each guess is also has an array.
Yes, exactly right. Oh, it is definitely a two-dimensional array, and that's what it will look like on the screen. The case I was trying to make earlier was rather than pile everything in the model in a gigantic 2D array, since we're only ever going to be focused on exactly one row at a time. The previous rows, those were guesses that failed. They didn't get the word. The ones ahead of us, that's nothing but optionals. There's no point in looking at those. The only one we're going to be laser focused on is the current guess, the current row of where they are in the set of all possible guesses at the top of the screen. And it's just, I think it's going to be easier to zero in on that and identify it and compare it to things and all that other stuff if it is just a single linear array rather than having to pick out the row in a two-dimensional array. And again, I could be proven wrong on that, and we might go back to a 2D array. And if you're already thinking of yours as a 2D array, that's fine. It's just that it seemed to me that that would be perhaps moving in the wrong direction by adding complication rather than removing it. It's like, if you remember, in C++, there was at least one example program where you had structures inside structures and an array inside those structures and everything, and it got to where you had to specify so much stuff. Car, square bracket, C, dot seat, square bracket, I, dot dog, square bracket, J, the name equals Rover. I mean, that's what I was trying to avoid having to get such a long expression just to get at that one piece of information that you want. Does that make any sense? Well, if it doesn't, you can explain it to me. I have so much trouble getting anything to work today. I'm clicking on the back arrow, and it's just not cooperating. We have an array of user guesses. We've got a current row that we're not using yet. What do we not have? We don't have any way for the view to see this. So view model to the rescue. Here comes a view model. We need to expose something else. It's almost as if except for the, did everybody pick up in the videos what the @published and @observable object and @observable and all that stuff? Did you pick up what that was in the videos? That was done outside of class. That might not have been a good thing to relegate to outside of class. Does anybody, what does it mean that model variable M is published? What does that mean?
Means that it's sort of like released so that the view can see it.
Yes. I don't know for a fact, but I've seen so many language changes and so many paradigm shifts in Xcode in my career of teaching iOS. Sometimes it feels like it's my whole job. That I don't think this is going to be long for this world. I don't think they're going to do that forever. Here's the deal. With the overarching paradigm we're supposed to be using, which is model, view, and then the connection is view model. One of the rules is the view can't ask anybody anything. It cannot make a function call to the model and say, what's the secret word, for example. It's not allowed to do that. It can't do that. All it can do is somehow or another detect magically that changes happened in the model. Is everybody with me so far? I mean, that sounds like it's ridiculous, like a magical fairy tale, and it kind of is. What you have to do is make it so the model is like broadcasting or radiating out to the world. This is what I look like. And the view is supposed to pick up on that and say, oh, let's see. I need to make sure that what I'm showing on the screen matches what's currently in the model exactly. And since it's not allowed to make a function call over there, then what it has to do is just magically detect this radiation like a radio station. They're broadcasting. The model is broadcasting. This is my current state. And the view picks up on that and makes an adjustment and maybe highlights a letter or maybe changes a color or something like that. So here's the bottom. The bottom of it is we've got a published variable in the view model, and that bottom out is the model itself. So this is saying the model is published. It is broadcasting to the world for anybody who wants to see it, but we know we're broadcasting it for the view. And if we look at the view, that's even content view, that's even weirder at the top. And my mouse clicks are just not doing any good. Look at this. Observed object. The observed object is variable VM, which is a view model. So as far as the view knows, it is observing indirectly. It's keeping its eye on the view model, which means that any change to an observed variable, I'm trying to get this right for myself, any change in a published variable in an observed object should be radiated out so that the view can see it. And what that means is it will know that it needs to update, say, the color of the letter on the keyboard. I'll get real specific. If the model changes the color of one of the letters for whatever reason, then the view has to be able to magically detect that and update itself on the screen without calling a function. And the way it does that is to receive this radiation of this published object called the model. And here is where we claim that the object we're keeping an eye on indirectly, because we're not going to be calling any functions to do it. The object we're keeping our eye on indirectly is the whatever the view model is publishing for us to see. And I'll go back to the view model temporarily for that. The view model has defined itself, or not defined itself, but it has declared itself to be a conformant of the observable object protocol. A lot of learning Swift is learning all these terms. Observable object is a protocol, and you got to have, if you're going to do that, you got to have something that's published. Let me comment this out and see if it'll generate a protocol error, just for poops and giggles. Come on, knock me on the head. Please make an error. Please make an error. Cannot find it. Well, It should have told me, and it would if I fixed the other errors. It should have told me that view model is not a conformant of observable object, because you've got to have at least one thing that's published in there. Otherwise, there's no point in observing. The published variable means any changes that happen to the model are available to see by whoever is observing the observable object view model. And those changes will then take their effect in the content view. And now I'm talking in a circle as well. Does everybody kind of understand those connections there? I personally think that that will eventually become automatic in Swift UI or whatever their next language is. Yes?
So then when we're in content view and it's like VM dot and then variables that are in like either view model or model view, it's like it just automatically knows what, or not model view, just model. It automatically knows like what that variable currently is and it's using that variable.
Okay, we must be using VM or I wouldn't have put it there already. Here it is. For each VM dot models letter options. So it's doing something, a for each on a view model variable. Now this is actually not taking advantage of the observed object. The observed object is what makes it so that a color change on something in the model automatically shows up on the screen by magic without any function calls having to take place. Okay, any change to the model will be automatically reflected on the screen. But here's how this VM variable is used. We're using VM, the view model holds all the secrets of the model, but so that the view can see them. And the content view has to go through the view model for anything it wants to know about the model directly, including this array of how many different letters are there on the keyboard and what are they. So it's using this VM variable, and we named it ourselves, didn't we? Models letter options. And if we look in the view model, it does have a variable named models letter options. But look, a lot of the view model is cheating. All it does, it doesn't really have a computed value of its own for that variable. It just turns around and says, okay, model, somebody wants to know what the letter options are. What are the letter options? So it steals, in effect, the letter options from the model. And back in the model, it has that array that we went to some length to initialize and set up called letter options. Okay? So the view says, I need to know what the letter options are to be able to put those on the screen, but it can't ask the model. It asks the view model. View model, can you tell me what the letter options are? And the view model says, sure. And then it turns around and makes the model do all the work. Here's the letter options and presents them all the way across.
So how did you change that part to where it automatically knows?
The automatic part is this. This is where we needed the automatic part. It wasn't until I did this. And if you go back and watch the videos as if you're trying to memorize them, paying attention to every single little detail, and I'm saying that because I don't expect anybody to do that. I wouldn't want to have to do that. But this business here of setting is selected equals false, that's not communicated directly to anybody, not back to the view model, not back to the view. If we look at the view, this one does highlight the selected letter, doesn't it? Please, oh please. Oh, that's in the keyboard. The keyboard is still part of the view. Look at this. See this business right here? Letter data.is selected 12.6. The letter data, this variable inside here, that corresponds to something way back in the model. And the model set that to be selected. It unselected the previously selected one and selected the current one. And if you didn't have that @observed object and the observable object and published, then this would do nothing. This would say, I've already got the letter on the screen. Why should I change anything? It's to automatically detect the changes and update what's on the screen. Now you can talk. I was trying to finish my thought.
Worked before I added the observable objects.
On the is selected stuff?
Yes, like it would highlight the circles before I made them observable objects. I even like wrote it in my developer's journal because it was weird.
Well, you've inspired me. Let's see. Didn't I tell you? Didn't I tell you? I predicted the future. I just didn't think the future would be 3 minutes away. Let's see if they've already gotten rid of all that mess of observable object and everything. SwiftUI. An observable object is a class. Oh, by the way, it has to be a class. It can't be a struct. That's part of the reason why our view model has to be a class. That can be observed for changes by views. When any of its properties is marked with the @published property wrapper change, SwiftUI is notified and automatically re-renders any dependent views, thus updating the user interface. Now, the only example I've got in mind, and it did not work on mine, maybe you've got a different version of Xcode or Swift or whatever, but mine, and I forgot that we had to get that, so I had to go back and review notes from last time. But the only one that I've got so far that's actually taken advantage of this is that selected thing. Because here's the deal. When you, in the view, when you say, okay, do all your for eaches, do all your H stacks and all that stuff, it puts all that stuff on the screen and thinks, my job is done, nothing else to do. We don't want it to be done. If something changes in the model, since the view is supposed to at all times reflect the current state of the model, if something gets tweaked in the model, this letter, it wasn't selected, but it's selected now, we want that to automatically be radiated out to the view so that the view knows that it needs to update itself. And that's what all this business of the observed objects and the observable objects and published and all that is for. So that without having to call any functions or do anything special, the view just sort of, like I said, it magically detects, oh, I'm out of date. I need to update that key on the keypad, on the keyboard. I need to update it because now it's selected. There is no function call or anything that communicates that back and forth. It's just that once that's changed in the model, since the model is the published object, the published variable in an observable object, and the view has said, I'm registering myself, I want to know when any changes happen to my observed object. When that little change is detected, made way over there, it's now selected, then boom, the model knows that it needs to update itself. Now they have finessed away some of that already. It used to be, you also had to say all over the place in the view, anything that could possibly change as a result of the change to the model. And it really was something as ridiculous as view could change protocol. And that was just obscene. You ended up having to put that all over the place, and I was so glad to see that go. And it did go. But I hope this will go too. But I would like to see yours in the lab. I'm going to have to quit this video. And yeah, there's quite a bit more to go on this. And I apologize for the quality of this video. I know that when I'm tired and I can't think clearly that the videos aren't as good. Maybe these things aren't really as complicated as they seemed because I was kind of fumbling through them. And I apologize to all of you out there in YouTube land if you're stumbling upon this video and you wonder what the hey is going on in our class. At any rate, I'm stopping it now and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.